Hello, welcome back to Beyond the Protocol. I'm so glad to have you today. Episode number 7. The weeks are going by fast, aren't they? And I am solo today. It's just me. And I think that's pretty cool because I want to cover a topic that I think a lot of us have in the back of our minds, given the current state of what's going on. And so it's just us. Although I love having my guests, and we'll pick that back up next week for sure. So, current state of our research industry and what's going on. I've had a lot of conversations with friends and colleagues and um, clients, and I think there's just this level of uncertainty as we try to adjust and keep going forward, even though like there feels like an elephant in the room or a big question mark where we just don't know because we're in unprecedented times. And I thought it would be good just to take a time to kind of share that. And it would be great if you would drop in the comments your perspective or your thoughts or kind of what you're feeling and the way that you're navigating this to stay on the right side of the line. So, what is happening? I think sometimes we get so bubbled in our own little world of clinical research and being in our pockets if we're on the government side, public health, industry, pharma, biotech. We do what we do day to day and we know what we know. But sometimes we forget to kind of think about the bigger picture. And for our fellow researchers that have been impacted significantly recently with the layoffs in the FDA and the NIH and the cutbacks, I think we have to remember that even though we're on this side of it, it impacts us. We're all in one circle together, and eventually we will feel that if we haven't already. And I know there are those of us that are watching that are in this transition stage where you are not employed or working right now due to layoffs and things. So I think we should stop and acknowledge that some of us are business as usual and maybe feeling uneasy. And then there's some of us that have completely had everything turned upside down and are looking for the next position and have that level of concern of what's going to happen tomorrow. And so with the NIH and FDA changes and all of the research cutbacks that we see, what does this mean for us in operations and clinical trials? Not fully sure. I don't think anyone can have a crystal ball and say exactly what this means downstream. I do think it will have a domino effect. Some companies and some of us as individuals will be impacted more, some of us not as much, but I think we will all feel it in one way or another. We could see delays in approvals and um, the regulatory process getting more bottlenecks, right? As we look to the FDA and the departments that have been impacted significantly, as they adjust to try to keep things moving, we will feel that. And then just a general disruption in clinical trial activities are the things that we plan for, such as inspections and updated documents and guidance and things like that. It changes. And so we have to know that and be ready to adjust for that. And I think that unknown lends itself to what the clinical teams and even leadership is feeling right now that we just don't know. And sometimes not knowing lends itself to fear. And I think we should find ways to speak about that and acknowledge it and not just pretend it doesn't exist. Um, because it does. And as leaders, I think there is a responsibility to be transparent and honest with the teams that you support and make sure they know, even if you don't have an answer, it's better to sit down and speak and say, we're in the process of trying to understand and navigate this, and we don't have all the answers. But we want to acknowledge and have a discussion and allow you to share your concerns or ask the questions you have. And I think it helps. It lends itself to the culture that we hope to build within our organizations where there's transparency and a sense that we're in this together and we're not necessarily siloed and no one's speaking with one another and acknowledging an elephant in the room per se. And I think that matters. It matters on both sides. It matters in leadership and it matters for the teams that are implementing the work day to day and wanting to do a great job, but also have fears and anxieties on the personal side as to what does this mean for not only my organization that I support and am connected to, but for me personally. And I think that's the new normal. And it's probably going to be with us for a while. The uncertainty, the unknown. What does this mean? We already have so many changes happening in our industry right now with AI and DCT. And there's just a lot of pillars and components that we're all like watching and observing to understand or even foretell what this means. What is it going to look like in 5 years or 10 years? Is my role going to be the same? Will my role be eliminated? And I think those are real questions that many of us have that no one's talking about necessarily collectively or corporately. And we should be, even if we don't have the answers, we should have a forum and a platform to talk about these things and to hear from people who have some expertise or knowledge and can give us insights into what they believe it looks like. Because I think even though it's not an exact science, it helps us as individuals to understand where do we fit in? How do I need to adjust? How can I retool? Should I be looking at other areas of research and start to understand and get experience? Maybe I'm in operations and I've always wanted to know what regulatory did and get more experience there. So maybe I should start to look at that. Or maybe I love operations. I love operations. I don't want to leave operations. So how do I adjust and take the experience that I have and find a way to ensure I can evolve and progress with the changing times. And so I think those are questions we have, those are discussions we should be having, and they're valid and real. And so getting in a community and connecting with people where you can have these discussions and feel like they are informative and helping you to navigate, I think that dissipates some of the fear and unknown and anxiety you have. So don't stay siloed. Connect, have your network, have these discussions, and link up with the communities and organizations that can hold the conversation in a positive light, in an informative, educational way, so that we know how to proceed forward. And so, what does it mean as we proceed forward and we move ahead in this unknown, uncertain time that we find ourselves in? I think this is the call for leadership. And if you're a leader in clinical operations or um, whatever side of the line it may be, the pharma biotech sponsor side, CROs, vendors, even sites. If you are finding yourself in a position of leadership and you are responsible to lead teams to implement the work that needs to be done, you have a responsibility to support your teams and help them navigate through the unknown, even though you as a leader also are in this space, right? Um, but teams that are coming to work every day and still pushing out the work, and even now may feel more pressure because now we may need to get this data delivered sooner so that we can compress our timelines to submissions because of what we know that's happened with the cutbacks in our FDA and NIH departments, et cetera. Um, More pressure. Do it faster, get the data, get the patients recruited, all of that. We expect them to commit to these additional requests and requirements and critical path timelines that are now on us as a result of what's happened in the recent weeks. But then we don't stop and have conversations, either collectively or one on one, to say, this is how you could be impacted, or this is what's happening, or the discussions that you're not privy to. Um, but we still need you to be committed. We're still all in this together, even though we're not sure what's ahead for the moment. This is what it is. And be transparent as possible, knowing that you oftentimes can't give all the information and it may not even be known what the strategy is or yet, but just sharing that it's not known, but we appreciate you. We know we're putting you under additional pressure and we need you to stick with us through this. Even just a message like that is so helpful and beneficial to the teams that need to hear it. Um, and so I think that's appreciated. It doesn't need to be another happy hour or pizza lunch. It just needs to be an honest, transparent discussion with the teams to let them know you acknowledge there's an elephant in the room. You may not have all the answers, but that we're going to get through this together. And if you have the appropriate culture in place, anyway. That's an easy lift. If your culture isn't so great and you're already dealing with challenges where teams are not motivated and you're experiencing fight quitting and all the things that I talk about and post about on LinkedIn, then I think you have even more work to do. But that doesn't mean you don't have the transparent, honest conversations about what's happening in our industry and how that impacts your teams. So, how do we support our teams and the humans that I'm always advocating for who are running our trials and operationally the foundation of what we do day to day? I Mental health is a big thing, and I'm so happy to see that there's more conversations about it. There's more support around it. Jess Thompson is doing a conference, and I saw her post that there will be yoga and quiet rooms, and I think it's excellent that we're focusing on that. But it should be the norm, and I think we need to acknowledge that mental health is real, and we as humans have situations outside of work that we bring to work, and then we add the pressures of work, it can bring us to a breaking point. And a lot of people are at that point, whether they're employed or they're laid off and looking for work. And I think we have to be fellow humans and acknowledge that and support one another and find a way to lift each other up and just give a positive, encouraging word or space. And so, if you don't have that currently in your organization, there are ways to get that. And organizations and individuals and people that can gladly come in and help you provide the mental health space and support for your teams. And I think it's the right thing to do as leaders of our organizations. And it doesn't have to be a considerable investment. It just takes time and a little bit of effort to bring that into your organization, and it's worth it. And so, simple ways you can show up for your team when you're not certain. Talked about it a little bit already. Have one on ones. Just listen to the concerns of your teams and what they're feeling and um, what they would like to see. Give them the opportunity to say it would be great to have this. Maybe they have some views and points that you don't, and you haven't considered, and they could be simple solutions to keep your team motivated, to keep your team feeling like we're in this together and that even though there's a lot of uncertainty and we're not sure, we feel okay with continuing on because we know we have the support around us as much as what can be done through this. And then encouragement, direction, having a strategy, having a plan. Strategy and plans are so much more than just strategy and plans. And when it feels like the earth is shaking and hurricanes coming, if we have a plan and we know how to spring into action, it feels so much better than everyone's kind of like, what do we do? The world is falling down and everyone's just kind of standing here scratching our heads. That doesn't feel so good. It's kind of like when it's stormy and my dog is terrified. If I become scared of the storm, he goes into a whole nother dimension. But if I'm calm and I know what to do, then he's kind of like, oh, she's good. I'm going to be good. It carries over into our work world too. We as leaders have to understand and know what the strategy and plan is when things kind of go awry. Because if we don't, guess what? It trickles down and no one else knows what to do either. And then we're all frozen in fear. Not going to be a great outcome. And we can avoid that by having strategies and plans and contingencies and just some basic understanding of what we'll do if we need to go this route. And that's where risk management comes in. If you have a good risk management plan, then you have some form of strategy where you can go to those plan B, C, and D and put those into play. So essentially, find a way to support your teams and the humans that are supporting you to get the work done. I think it's fair and it's right to do. And it's also at the end of the day helps to get us to the end goal the way that we need to. And so essentially, my message today is we're in an uncertain time for sure. But for those of us that have fear and anxiety about it, I think we should proactively find ways to address that and not just stay in that space. It's not good for us physically. It's not good for us mentally. And it really doesn't help anything, right? It doesn't change one thing to stay fearful and anxious and worried. And so connect with communities, connect with people that can help get you out of that and find ways to address the things that have you all tangled up and tied up for sure. And then a call to the leadership and those that are responsible for leading us through these clinical trials and the operations that we do day to day. Um, Take care of your people. Find ways, and if you don't have the resources individually, get them and bring them into your organizations. It's just that simple. Sometimes we make things so hard, but they don't have to be. Um, Support your people and help them through this time that we're in while we continue to do the work that we have to do, despite what's going on around us. And I think that is what I wanted to share today. So please, I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to see comments from you about how your organization may be helping or things you would like to see. Send me a message. I've had some really great conversations with people, um, and even people that feel like they're really alone and they don't have connections and they've been in positions for 4 or 5 years, didn't think they would have to start looking or dusting off CVs and getting a presence on LinkedIn. How do I interview or do screenings with AI? This is completely madness. I don't understand. Things have changed so much. I think you just have to find people to talk about it with and connect. And that's the way we're going to get through it is together and navigate the changes that we find ourselves in. And so do that. Don't stay on your own on an island. And I look forward to speaking with you at the next show. Thanks.